Welcome. This video will feature the GenerationTAG process for end-user contact and scheduling to be executed by all staff who are responsible for making the daily phone calls. I'll be addressing how to set priorities and which order to manage the contact and scheduling. There are several categories in which we will consider when determining the priority for each individual work order and how and where they are in the order that they need to be called for the day for those who are making the phone calls. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to access T-sheets. Let's get into T-sheets here. T-sheets. Okay, log in if you haven't logged in already. Alright, so we're going to go to schedule. Now, the first priority for your calls will always, without exception, be any calls that are rescheduled, any assignments that are rescheduled. And the reason for this is because those particular work orders are likely already escalated. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of those work orders before all others. They take priority 100% of the time unless you are specifically instructed to do otherwise, and usually that's done on a case-by-case basis. So by default, rescheduled jobs are always going to take priority. So there's only one way to indicate to the person making the phone calls that a call needs to be rescheduled, and that is taking a look in T-sheets in this assignments rescheduled row. As you can see here, we don't have any, so I made one. I made this entry here a test work order. So in this particular case, we would analyze all of the work orders that are listed in this row. As you can see here, this particular screen only captures the current week. You may want to consider taking a look at following weeks, probably one or two at the most. You don't have to worry about going 3 weeks out. So the current week and perhaps the following week as well. I suppose if we are like on a Friday of the current week, then you may want to consider going out 2 weeks. So at any rate, we will go ahead and deal with this one first. So this particular work order would be, in this scenario, would be the only one that would fall under the rescheduled criteria. So you would just open this up, and you can see the assignment number down here, wherein then you would access that assignment number in the OnEnforce platform to get the end user contact information to reschedule that job. Now, when you see an entry in T-sheets in assignments rescheduled, the date that it's under is the target date that we want to reschedule that particular work order to. So in this particular case, we would contact the end user and try to convince them to reschedule it, the work order, for whatever day that the rescheduled assignment is currently under in T-sheets. In the event the end user indicates that that day doesn't work for them and they would prefer a later date, that's fine. So let's just say that we've contacted this end user and they say, no, Friday the 13th is not good, for superstitious reasons or what have you. They would prefer to do it the following Wednesday. So we would find out what day the following Wednesday is, which would be the 18th. So in the event that we're not already overbooked on the 18th, we can then just go down here and edit this particular T-sheets entry, and we'll just change the date from the 13th to to the 18th. Publish. Okay. And then the secondary thing we are going to do is we're going to assign it to its appropriate technician. I'll just assume that I am the appropriate technician, so we're just going to drag it and move it down to my name. And when you do that, you can send a courtesy notification to the technician letting them know that they have a new work order for that day. And as you heard my phone, I just got a notification on my phone that I have a new work order for the 18th after that date has been confirmed with the end user. So that is the top priority call. The top priority calls. Anything rescheduled. Now we will move on to the subsequent priorities. At this point, we can actually exit out of T-Sheets. The next priority are break fixes. The priority after that, or the third priority, are SBRs. The fourth priority are IWPs and meter install onlys, or MIOs. And the fifth priorities are MROs, meter removal onlys, LV1s, and LV2s. So what we are going to do now to make the management of these priority calls more efficient is we are going to run a report and essentially work off that report. And we are going to put them in put the work orders in an appropriate order, so the caller can and scheduler can efficiently run down the report and essentially make the calls in priority order. All right, so we've accessed OnForce. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on this work charm. We're going to click on this active work orders. When you click on that, it should give you this report option charm over here. We're going to click on reports. We're going to click on work order activity reports. We're going to create a custom report. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and this is completely optional. You could choose either CSV, which is comma separated value, or Excel. There's literally, or I should not literally, but virtually no distinction between the two. You could just leave it as the default. You could select CSV. It really doesn't matter. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to change the date. We're going to populate this particular field here to the first day of the prior month of whatever the current month is. So the current month is September, so we're going to go back to the first day of the prior month, which would be 08/01, basically August 1st, 2019. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check mark all of these boxes here. Now the resulting data, you are going to have many columns that are going to be irrelevant. You can summarily disregard those columns on the report. This process takes about 10 or 15 seconds. Right now the website is processing your query. After about 10 or 15 seconds, you'll notice let me do this. You'll notice that this file will appear down here. At this point, you can either double click on the file to open it, or if you want to see the different options you have, you can right click on it, and then you can either select open or show in folder here. If you do show in folder here, it'll open up your downloads folder, and you can open it from there if you'd like. I'm just going to go ahead and select open because it's the most efficient route to get this done. And here's your report. Now there's a couple of things we're going to do with this report before we begin analyzing the data and acting upon it. The first thing we're going to do is highlight row 1 by clicking on the row header here, number 1. And then we're going to go click on data. And then we're going to click filter. This will essentially add a drop-down filter into the first row of each of the columns. The next thing we're going to do is highlight the row again. Highlight row 1. Click on View. Click on Freeze Panes. And then freeze the top row. This will allow the report reviewer to scroll through the data without having this first row scroll off the top of the screen. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to auto size all of the columns. And you do that by clicking on this square right here in the upper left hand corner. It is the box to the left of the column headers and above all of the row headers. So click on that. That will highlight the entire worksheet. Now, to engage the auto size mechanism, what you now want to do is scroll your mouse in between any two of the columns in the column header. You'll notice that if the mouse is within the column area itself, the mouse cursor is a down arrow. Just move the mouse slightly to the left or the right until the cursor turns into a cross. Once it turns into a cross, double click. That will auto size every column. At that point, and this is completely optional, you can get rid of some of the extra white space there by resizing some of these columns if you want. You don't have to, it's completely optional. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to prioritize which calls need to be made first. Obviously, we want to segregate out quite a few of these. Naturally, the first thing we're going to do is we're basically going to deselect everything and just select accepted assignments. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the drop-down filter for status and deselect paid. Okay, so that gives us a list of all of the assignments wherein we need to make the calls today. Right now, of course, it's 5:58. Most of the work orders that came in today have already been called. So this gives us a list of the ones that are remaining to be called. We'll do a count here. And as you can see here, there are 28 calls that need to be made for this particular data set. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into under date accepted, and we are going to click on the drop-down filter, and then we're going to sort newest to oldest, and there is a reason for that. Pitney Bowes gives us 5 hours to make first contact for every work order. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and resize all of these rows here. Oops, we're going to highlight everything and resize the row to get rid of the extra white space. Okay. Okay, so theoretically speaking, if this call came in and it was accepted by GenerationTAG at 11:33 a.m. on 9/11, we have until 5 hours later, which is 16:33 or 4:33 p.m. to make this call. Now, it being 5:59 p.m., it does not look like a call has been made. And we can go over here to make that determination. Okay, so it looks like this was got it. Okay, so it looks like this was in fact handled already. So one of the ways you can determine whether or not the job has been handled already is to take a look at that column over there, or you can simply go into the actual work order itself. I'm getting ahead of myself here. You can highlight the cell where the work order number is. You can hit Control C, which copies the data into your clipboard. Go back to your web browser on the OnForce website, Doesn't matter what page you're on, you can simply just go up to the search bar here on the OnForce platform, hit Control V for paste the work order number in there, click search. That should take you directly to that work order. As you can see here, this work order has been called. So that is considered compliant. Okay, so this call has already been made. Now, this is optional, but this is what I do to help me more effectively manage the data. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight this entire column by clicking on the row, I highlight the entire row by clicking on the row header. And then I'm just going to go up here to my Home tab, which will open up these options here, these styles, and I'm just going to click Good. That highlights the entire row green. That lets me know that I can just move on to the next. I've already analyzed this work order. I can dismiss it because somebody else has taken care of it. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and I'll start from the top down. I'm going to highlight this one. Highlight the work order. I'm just going to do it the easy way and then just paste this work order into OnForce. And we'll take a look at what happened here. Okay, so it looks like this call was accepted at 2:21 p.m. on September 11th. That means we have 5 business hours from 2:21 p.m. to call this customer. Naturally, 5 hours from 2:21 p.m. is 7:21 p.m. and we don't have people working at 7:21 p.m. So anything after 5 p.m. Eastern Time will roll over to the following business day. So we have until 10:21, 10 o'clock. We have until about 11:21 the following business day, 10:21 a.m. the following business day to make sure we contact this customer. So that call would be essentially the highest on the priority list for a phone call. So that call would need to be first. Provided it's a break fix. Okay, I'm going to have to edit this video and chop it up and move it around. The priority are reschedules, which we've already taken care of. The next set of priorities are break fixes and SBRs. Now, the easiest way to filter out your list to show just those are going to be to head over to the title column, and then you can hit the drop down arrow, and you can just basically deselect everything. And this, you can actually resize this so you can read all of the information. If there was an SBR in here, you can checkbox that as well. But since they're not, we'll dismiss the SBR for now. But we do want to checkbox the break fixes. Break fixes and SBRs are treated the same way. There is no priority break fix over SBR or SBR over break fix. They are treated identically. It does not matter which of the two you call in order. Okay, so essentially there is only one work order. That is a break fix. So this would essentially fall at the top of the priority list other than reschedules. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to Control-C to copy the work order number. We're going to go to our browser where we already have OnForce open. We're going to paste in the search bar on OnForce the work order number, and that will take us directly to the work order. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to see if somebody else has already tried to confirm or contact the end user. And it looks like there have been several notes put in the system today, and it looks like in this particular scenario we have already done it. So that particular work order has been handled. This is completely optional, but one of the things I do to indicate to me at a glance that a work order within my data set has been handled. I highlight the entire row, highlight this home toolbar here, and that will open up these different styles. I'm just going to go ahead and mark the entire row green, and that lets me know that this particular work order is handled and I can move on to the next one. Okay, so we want to go back to this filter here and select all of them again. This gives us again our entire data set. And that takes care of the break fixes and the SBRs. The priority after that is going to be IWPs and meter install onlys. Again, those are treated identically, so one doesn't really take any priority over the other. So what we want to do is, again, we're going to repeat this process, except this time we're going to highlight just the work orders where there are IWP or meter install only. So IWP naturally is essentially the mnemonic term we use for install and removal. So essentially we're going to highlight every category where there is the word install in it. Okay? So install, 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 and install. Okay? Those are your IWPs and MIOs. That cleans up the data set a little more. And allows us to focus on just the priority that we are currently working on. So after reschedules and break fixes and SBRs, these are now the ones that we are going to be calling. Again, we're going to be calling the most recently accepted first and working down the line. And the reason why is because the older the work order is, the more likely that we've already attempted, in some cases, many times, to contact that end user. So there is a higher likelihood that we're not going to be able to contact them again. But with that being said, the attempt still needs to be made. The whole point being is we need to make them in priority order. And the highest priority are the most recently accepted. Okay? So we've already sorted our data set from the most recent to the oldest. So essentially, your next 4 phone calls are going to be these 4 work orders. And then you would, of course, make your phone calls and then indicate, as per protocol, the result of the phone call, the disposition of the contact with the end user within the work order note. The next and last priority are all others. So we want to go back to the title column. And essentially, we are going to select the removal onlys. Which the removal onlys would also include the LV1s and the LV2s. Again, like the previous categories, one doesn't take any priority over the other. They all have equal priority. Meaning the removal and the LV1s and the LV2s have equal priority to each other. Okay, so this is the last priority of work orders. Again, the highest priorities within this priority set, we are going to go by most recently to oldest. So in this particular set of data, these 4 work orders are your highest priority. Since this row has been turned green, obviously that's my indication to myself that this work order has already been handled by somebody else and I can dismiss it. So in all actuality, these are the first 4 priority to be called in this particular order. This work order would be called first, this one second, this one third, this one fourth. So that discusses the order in which these all work orders, all Pitney Bowes work orders, need to be called. We cannot deviate from these priority categories unless you have been specifically instructed to do otherwise by a member of the executive management team. Again, the general principle is the priority set are the priority categories are in order as follows. Number 1, all rescheduled jobs. Number 2, break fixes and SBRs. They fall under the same. Number 3, IWPs and meter install onlys. And number 4, all others, which are your meter removal onlys, the LV1s and LV2s. When you run the report, you want to sort this from newest to oldest. You want to filter out everything other than accepted assignments and filter out everything other than accepted in the status. Again, one of the reasons why we want to do the most recent to oldest is to conform to Pitney Bowes, our contractual obligation to them to contact all end users within 5 hours of acceptance. If you have any questions regarding these protocols, please feel free to reach out to me, Garrett. Thank you for watching.